Colleagues, good morning. Welcome to our special briefing. Today we will share detailed information about the crash of the Il-20 airplane of the Russian airspace forces off the Syrian coast on September the 17th. We will present a minute-by-minute account of this tragic incident that was made based on the objective radar readings, including those from the Ploto Air Information Display System. On September the 17th, the Russian reconnaissance aircraft Il-20 began its special mission in the Idlib de-escalation zone at 2031. The plane had a total of 15 servicemen on board. At the same time, a group of 4 Israeli F-16 fighter jets exited Israel's airspace to carry out a surprise attack on some industrial facilities in the Syrian Arab Republic. You can see the flight route of the Israeli jets on the screen. The F-16 jets flew over the neutral waters of the Mediterranean Sea and began patrolling an area 90 kilometers west of Latakia. At 21:39, a colonel of the Israeli Air Force informed the Russian command in Syria via the deconfliction channel about the upcoming airstrike. She said that within the next few minutes Israel would attack some industrial facilities in northern Syria. In 1 minute's time, at 21:40, 4 Israeli F-16 jets dropped GBU-39 guided bombs targeting industrial facilities in the province of Latakia. Thus, Israel did not inform the Russian forces about its operation in advance, but rather they issued a warning simultaneously with the beginning of the strike, which constitutes a breach of the existing agreements. These actions constitute a clear violation of the 2015 Russian-Israeli agreements to prevent clashes between our armed forces in and over Syria that were reached by the Joint Working Group. Here you can see the positions of the aircraft at the moment of the strike, captured by the Ploto system. Russia's Il-20 is represented by the red mark on the map and 4 Israeli F-16 jets by yellow ones. I would like to stress that during the negotiations via the deconfliction channel, the representative of the Israeli Air Force reported that the targets assigned to the Israeli aircraft were located in northern Syria. The conversation was in Russian. The Russian Defense Ministry has a record of the conversation. The commander of the Il-20 flying over the north of Syria received an order to leave the mission area and head south to return back to the airbase. As you can see on the map, the Israeli jets delivered strikes in Latakia, which is a western province of the country, not in the north of the Syrian Arab Republic. The city of Latakia is located on the western coast. The misleading information provided by the Israeli officer about the area of strikes did not allow the Russian Il-20 airplane to move timely to a safe area. Israel also did not provide any information about the location of the F-16 jets. At 21:51, the Syrian air defense forces began to repel the Israeli attack and launched surface-to-air missiles. After the strike, the Israeli jets again began patrolling an area 70 kilometers west of the Syrian coast. They deployed electronic countermeasures and were probably preparing for another strike. At 21:59, one of the Israeli jets started maneuvering towards the Syrian coast, approaching the Il-20 that was making its approach for landing. The Syrian air defense units considered its maneuver to be another attack by the Israeli Air Force. The Israeli pilot certainly knew that the Ilyushin Il-20 has a much larger radar cross-section than F-16, and because of that, the Russian aircraft would be the preferred target for a surface-to-air missile. Moreover, the Israeli military also knew that Russia and Syria use different friend or foe systems. And because of that, Syrian radars were likely to identify an Ilyushin Il-20 as a group of Israeli jets. At this time, the Ilyushin Il-20 made a maneuver for final approach towards the Khmeimim air base and crossed paths with the fire trajectory of the Syrian air defense systems, targeting the Israeli jets. I would like to put special emphasis on the fact that the Israeli jets saw the Russian Ilyushin Il-20 and used it as a shield against the surface-to-air missiles, while they carried on maneuvering in the region. At 22:03, a Syrian surface-to-air missile engaged the largest and closest target, which was the Ilyushin Il-20. The commander reported the aircraft on fire and began emergency descent. At 22:07, the Russian Ilyushin Il-20 reconnaissance airplane disappeared from radars. At the same time, as you can see, the Israeli jets continued to stay in this area, patrolling the airspace until 22:40. At 22:29, an officer of the Russian command in Syria reported to an officer at the Israeli Air Force command post that the Russian Ilyushin Il-20 aircraft was in distress. He said, "We demand that the Israeli aircraft leave the area as we need to engage our rescue teams." An Israeli lieutenant replied that he had received the information and would forward it to the command. At 22:40, the Israeli F-16 jets left the area. After that, at 22:53, which is 15 minutes after the Russian plane was hit by a missile, the colonel of the Israeli Air Force Command Center, who was the officer on duty, came on the radio and reported, "We got your information that the Ilyushin Il-20 is in distress. We have cleared the area. If you need assistance, we are ready to help." The presented objective data indicates that the actions of the Israeli fighter pilots, which led to the loss of life of 15 Russian servicemen, either lacked professionalism or were an act of criminal negligence, to say the least. Therefore, we believe that the blame for the tragedy with the Russian Ilyushin Il-20 aircraft lies entirely with the Israeli Air Forces and those who made the decision to carry out such actions. I would like to emphasize that on September 17th, the Israeli Air Force fighter aircraft were maneuvering in the approach area of the Khmeimim airfield that is used not only by military but also civilian passenger aircraft. Thus, the Israeli jets created a direct threat to any passenger or cargo aircraft that could have been there at the time and could have become victims of the adventurism of the Israeli military. Currently, a search operation is being carried out to retrieve the bodies of the deceased and wreckage from the water at the crash site of the Russian Ilyushin Il-20, 27 kilometers west of the port of Banias. Another point I would like to make is that Israeli pilots behave very differently compared to the US pilots deployed in the region. As you all know, we have a communication channel set up to prevent air incidents. The parties inform each other in advance about their plans for Air Force missions in various parts of Syria. This enables us to undertake due measures in time in order to prevent any situations that would threaten Russian or US forces both in the air and on the ground. Russia has never violated the agreement with Israel and has never used the Russian air defense weapons deployed in Syria, despite the fact that Israel's airstrikes caused situations that potentially threatened the safety of Russian servicemen. During the time frame covered by the agreements, the Israeli Air Force Command Center received 310 notifications about Russian Air Force missions running close to Israeli territory. During the same time, Israel issued only 25 notifications. It did so just before attacks. In the context of constructive Russian-Israeli cooperation in the Syrian Arab Republic, it is difficult for us to understand the reasons behind such actions by Tel Aviv. This is an extremely ungrateful response to all that has been done by the Russian Federation for Israel and for the Israeli people recently. I would like to remind you that as a result of the operation conducted in the southwestern de-escalation zone in Syria by government troops supported by Russian airspace forces, this summer the UN peacekeeping contingent was able to resume its work on the border between Syria and Israel in the Golan Heights, in accordance with the UN Security Council Resolution 350, adopted in 1974. On August 2nd, 2018, the UN peacekeeping contingent, accompanied by the Russian military police, organized patrols in the Golan Heights area for the first time after a 6-year hiatus. Russian military support of this mission ensured that there were no shelling attacks on Israeli territory from the Golan Heights. Currently, 6 observation posts of the Russian military police are set up along the Bravo line, providing security for the UN mission staff. In order to prevent missile strikes from Iran-backed formations, Israel requested to settle the situation in the area adjacent to the Golan Heights, where Iran-backed formations deploy heavy weapons. Russia consulted with Iran, and Tehran said that it did not consider it right to aggravate the situation in the area and had no aggressive intentions against Israel. As a result, with the assistance of the Russian forces, all Iran-backed formations with heavy weapons were withdrawn from the Golan Heights to a safe distance from Israel, more than 140 kilometers to the east of Syria. A total of 1,050 personnel, 25 multi-rocket launch systems and tactical missiles, as well as 145 pieces of other munitions and military hardware were withdrawn from the area. At the request of Israel, the Russian command in Syria repeatedly assured Israel that no sensitive munitions and equipment shipped from Russia to Syria will end up in the possession of a third party. Israel has repeatedly stressed the importance of the work carried out by the Russian Ministry of Defense in this area and expressed gratitude to Russian specialists. In 2016, at the urgent request of the Chief of the General Staff of the Israel Defense Forces, Lieutenant General Gadi Eisenkot, Israel received the Magach 3 tank captured in 1982 in Lebanon and kept in Russia since that time. The tank was transferred in the presence of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The Russian Ministry of Defense gave assistance to preserve Jewish sacred objects and burials in the city of Aleppo. This work was mediated by the President of the Federation of Jewish Communities of Russia, Alexander Boroda. This contribution was highly appreciated by the Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman. Besides, Israel appealed to Russia with a request to help find the remains of Israeli servicemen located at specific coordinates in Syria. The search was organized after Russia agreed the operation with our Syrian partners. The special search operation was conducted in a combat area controlled by ISIS. Terrorists suddenly attacked the Russian servicemen involved in the search operation. One Russian officer was wounded. Despite that, Russia was ready to carry on with the operation. In view of the above, the hostile actions committed by the Israeli Air Force against the Russian Ilyushin Il-20 aircraft crossed the line of civilized relations. The objective data about the September 17th incident that was presented to you today shows that the military leadership of Israel either has no appreciation for the level of relations with Russia or has no control over individual commands or commanding officers who understood that their actions would lead to tragedy.